This is the brand new Rlaarlo XTS-S10, and today we're going to find out what's new, which is more than I expected, take it for a blast, upgrade the crap out of it, and you know we're going to be comparing it to the new Traxxas Mini Rally. First of all, I have to say this is definitely not a Subaru WRX Rally. Is the nicest looking Rlaarlo they've ever made. It is very striking from the front in this beautiful blue color. It's got a lot of scale detail. The side profile looks really nice, though I think it's sitting a little bit high on the suspension, but we can fix that later. In the rear, we've got a nice solid plastic wing, what appears to be functional taillights, a single exhaust pipe in the middle that I think has an LED in it, and a clear window which gives us a nice first look at that interior detail. That detail includes driver figures, a half interior, and what appears to be a functional roll cage. To get a closer look at that roll cage, we need to pop the body off, and that's very easy to do by flipping this side latch, as well as the one on the other side, pushing in this front tab, lifting the front up, sliding it backwards, and it comes straight off, though you do need to be careful of one thing. Underneath the back, the wire for the lighting on the body is fairly short, and it's being made even shorter by this single zip tie right here. I'm going to recommend going ahead and cutting that right away. That's going to make your wiring a little less tidy, but it makes it less likely you're going to rip a wire out when you take the body off. That wire is connected to the lighting controller by a single connector, which is easy to remove. And as we pull off the body, we get our first hint of some of the really cool new stuff underneath it. On the underside of the body, we see that squeeze clip in the front with a couple of alignment pegs. The insides of the buckets for the lights. It looks like we're going to have some pretty comprehensive lighting in the front. The underside of that half interior, which shows that the roll cage doesn't actually tie into much. So that means while it's going to provide some support for the top of the body, it's not a super structural piece. Moving to the back, we have the lighting control board, and it's actually solidly mounted to this rear structure. This is really nice to see because in the past they've used double-sided tape and it tends to fail. We can see the insides of the rear lights and this rear tab that ties into the chassis, as well as the tailpipe that definitely has an LED in it, which is going to be really cool to see. The side clips do have braces that mount into the body itself. The body's made of medium thick Lexan, and with that inner structure, it does feel pretty strong. And down here at the fenders, the Lexan itself is about 0.7 millimeters thick, which should be plenty thick enough for a car of this size and weight. To finish it off, Rlaarlo does include a bunch of stickers that'll make it definitely not look like a Subaru, but I prefer that clean girl aesthetic, so I think I'm going to leave it just like this. Overall, I think this body looks absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to see what it looks like running. Of course, it's under the body where things get really interesting, and while this does look fairly similar to the previous F10, Rlaarlo's definitely not been sitting still, and I'm really excited to show you what's new. To start off, we've got some Rlaarlo branded tires on what look like some nice gold wheels. Pulling it off, you can see the hex did come off with the wheel. This is one place Rlaarlo could definitely improve on. A lot of cars like the new Traxxas Mini Rally have those hexes designed so that they don't actually come off with the wheels. They stay behind and are held on by a little clip feature. It's not a huge deal, but when the hex comes off with the wheel, there's a good chance you're going to lose this pin, especially if you're messing with it out in the field. While I have the Mini Rally out, is a perfect time to compare the size of these, and both being standard 1/10 scale rally car size, they are pretty much identical in length, similar in width, with the Traxxas being just a little bit wider, and they share a nearly identical wheelbase, with the Traxxas being just ever so slightly longer. And while the Mini Rally tires are a little bit taller, I suspect this new S10 is going to perform better off-road, but of course there's only one way to find out. Anybody who's bought a rally car anytime in the last several years will recognize these tires. They look very familiar. They do say Rlaarlo on them, which is pretty cool. The compound on these is reasonably soft, and they do have medium foams in them. The tires are 2.8 inches in diameter by just over an inch wide. In metric, that's about 0.00007 kilometers in diameter by about 22,000 micrometers in width. This is not the first Rlaarlo car we've seen these tires on, and they've done very well in the past. I expect them to do very well here as well. Speaking of doing very well, you guys are all part of the DoRC family, and you're growing this channel really fast. We are well on our way to 60,000 subscribers, and if you want to be part of that amazing growth, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? It shows me you enjoy these videos and lets me know I should do more of them. As you can see, the hex stuck in every single one of these wheels, and it's a bit of a pain to take out. Again, not a big deal, but a pet peeve of mine. Those hexes are plastic, and they're a standard 12 millimeters, which means there should be plenty of choices for different wheels on this, though without trimming, you're going to be limited by the size of these wheel wells. Fortunately, if you want to, there is plenty of room for trimming, though of course that might interfere with these really nice hard plastic included wheel liners. We'll get these installed in just a few minutes. But first, of course, we need to see what makes this thing tick, and this is a sensor cable, which has got me pretty excited. Starting from the front, we've got a nice, unique foam front bumper here. You can see the tab and holes where the body clips in. This attaches to a 7075 front tower. Moving back, you can see this is the carbon version of the car. We've got these two carbon braces in the middle. All the electronics here in the center, which we'll be checking out in just a second. And then in the back, we've got a little bit of a rear splitter, which is the first thing to come off. One thing I'm noticing right away is that it seems like every screw on these new parts uses a 2mm hex. This is really nice to see, and it shows Rlaarlo is listening. These are much easier to deal with than 1.5mm hexes, though there are some of those on here. Two of those need to be removed on the underside to get this splitter off, though it appears as though they've changed the design and you only need to take these two off as opposed to these two. That's nice because these two are thread locked in, but we might have to get into them in just a minute anyway. I normally like to take these 1.5mm hex screws out by hand. They can be really easy to strip, and taking them out by hand really helps prevent that. I also like to use a really good quality bit. This MIP 1.5mm fits perfectly in here, and I will note that these 1.5mm screws appear to be really high quality. They are marked, and there's basically no play between them and the bit, which means they're much less likely to get stripped out. Okay, scratch that. We do need to remove these two screws, and with this, I definitely recommend going with hand tools. Depending on how well these are thread locked into the aluminum D-block, they can be fairly tricky to remove. These were actually pretty easy, and while I don't see any thread lock on them, smelling them I can tell there is at least a little bit on there. Even with that though, pulling these out by hand is a good idea, especially the first time. And then with just two more screws to remove, the splitter still doesn't come off. How's this thing held on? And even with those removed, it doesn't come off. I did figure it out though. With those first two screws from the bottom removed, we can flip this up, and that gives us access to these two screws. So it's actually just these two screws here, then these two screws, and then the two screws holding it to the shock tower. I removed a lot of unnecessary screws there, but you know what? With new parts, that's the fun of learning, and we're learning together. If you like seeing me remove a bunch of screws so you don't have to, make sure you hit that like button. The plastic on this feels very high quality. Plastic feel is subjective, but I felt a lot of plastic over the years, and this feels like good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, behind that rear splitter, we've got a lot of shiny stuff to look at. For those of you who aren't thrilled about all the plastic used on a Traxxas car, I think you'll be pretty happy here. These shocks use pretty much my favorite combination of materials, and that includes threaded aluminum bodies, aluminum preload adjusters. Preload adjuster is actually kind of a misnomer. These are primarily for adjusting your ride height, and unless your suspension is completely topped out at rest, you're not actually adjusting the preload when you adjust the ride height. This might be hard to picture, but this spring doesn't get compressed more or less when you adjust this. It just moves the top of the shock in and out of the bottom of the shock. If you do have your suspension completely topped out at rest, it will compress the spring more, but you don't really want that anyway. On the other side of that, if your shock does end up completely compressed, it will increase the spring pressure, but throughout the normal travel, it only affects ride height, not your actual preload. But back to the shock itself, it does have a nice thick shaft, as well as my favorite shock cap style. I love having the aluminum threads and the plastic eye so that you get a little bit of flex with the eye, but the threads won't rip off the shock body. Pulling this cap off, we have a standard bladder style shock. It appears to be filled with a decent amount of fluid, and overall, these are really, really nice. And certainly they are far better than the all plastic, non-threaded shocks you get on the Mini Rally. I mean, just look at the difference between these two shocks. Which one would you rather have? Of course, it's not all sunshine and roses with this S10, and as we dig in deeper, we're going to find it's a little bit harder to work on than a lot of other options out there. And again, one of the main reasons for that are these 1.5 head screws. They're not too bad right now, but once they get some dirt in them, they can get stripped out pretty easily, and I'd love to see all of these get replaced, even on this included sway bar, which is nice to see. And with that sway bar swung out of the way and just a few more screws removed, we can pull off this rear cover and get our first look at the rear differential, which is very, very nice. We have a machined spiral bevel ring gear, the upgraded V2 outputs, and of course bearings all the way around. These are just shielded though. I'd love to see sealed bearings. In general, sealed bearings are considered better for bashing because they have a rubber seal which actually touches the inner race and at least ostensibly completely seals the insides from the outside. The shielded bearing has a metal shield that doesn't quite go all the way to the inner race and leaves a little gap between the two. That can let debris get inside and can eat up the bearings pretty quickly. Though to be fair, on these small RC bearings, the seals don't do that much better of a job, but I still would like to see them on this Rlaarlo. These differentials are one of the big functional differences between the carbon versions of these cars and the aluminum versions. Most everything else really isn't that big of a deal, but I think it's worthwhile to get the carbon version just to get these. Because while internally both versions are basically the same, they are sealed and have steel bevel gears for the differential action, the ring and pinion are very different. These are machined spiral bevel, and you don't get that on the aluminum version. Of course, with either version, the differentials are going to be far better than what you get with some other options. And don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% guaranteeing that these differentials are going to be stronger than the Traxxas planetary ones, but at the very least, they aren't full of grease. The dog bones are pretty standard, though Rlaarlo does offer upgrades for these, as well as the differentials, and a bunch of other parts for the car, many of which we're going to end up installing because later in the video, things might get a little crazy. However, before any of that happens, I'm curious to see if these stock parts are going to be able to handle this brand new power system. And by the way, I need to correct something I said earlier, because while the original XTS came in a carbon fiber and aluminum version, it appears as though this is only going to come as the carbon fiber or roller. That means unless you buy the roller, this is what you're going to get, and what you get is pretty neat. Because underneath this alternative mounting plate for the ESC, which is used when you have a longer battery in this tray, and underneath this fan and heatsink, we also have a brand new motor, which is right up against this receiver box, and I don't want to cut these wires, so let me pull this out before I actually pull the motor out. This receiver box is also the mount for the servo. This servo is an oddball size, and while it does have metal gears in it, if you want to upgrade, you're probably not going to be able to use this mount. Fortunately, there's an optional upgrade that lets you use a full 1/10 scale servo, which we will be doing later, and there's a second receiver box, so you can actually get rid of this one. That's also nice for installing larger motors, and hopefully now we can get this one out of here, which actually seems to be jamming up on this side pod, so let me get this off here as well. This pod has the side latch hole in it, and it also has a Nerf bar to help protect the side of the chassis. Speaking of which, this chassis is a standard flat aluminum plate, and it is a little under 3 millimeters thick. Now, hopefully we can get this out of here. And there we go, finally. This motor is a 3652 censored motor. It's branded irritable, which is interesting. The sensor wire uses a similar system to what we see on the new Hobbywing ESCs and motors. And in case you didn't know, this is designed for waterproofing. Standard sensor wires are inherently not waterproof. And whereas they usually work fine, water will get into these connectors and can corrode them. This type of connector is designed to prevent that from happening because it seals as you push it together. Because of that design, I'm really curious to see if the sensor board on here is waterproofed or not, as it doesn't really matter if the connector is waterproof if the motor itself isn't. While I take this last screw out, I'm going to give you my standard disclaimer. I don't recommend you take a motor apart unless you need to. There are washers, shims, and magnets in here that can be damaged if you're not careful. So let me do it so you don't have to. Unfortunately or not, I've been trying to force my way into this thing for a while, and without breaking something, I don't think I'm going to be able to get in here. The reason this tends to happen is because when they put thread lock on these little screws, the liquid thread lock also feeds in between the joint here, and it tends to seal these two pieces together. If you absolutely had to get in here, you probably could, but I don't absolutely need to, and I don't want to break it, so we're just going to put it back together and hope that they did waterproof it because everything else looks waterproof. And you know, it does say waterproof on it. That motor is going to get pushed by this pretty sweet looking new 80 amp ESC that I see has solid capacitors on it. These are a little bit more durable than electrolytics. They're also pretty well shielded by the fan housing. And thumbing through the manual, it does not appear as though the ESC is programmable in any way, though while I was in here, I saw that they do note that all of the electronics are waterproof. And I'm assuming that includes this new receiver because the receiver box itself isn't. This receiver does have a gyro in it. It has external voltage detection. And to go along with that new receiver, we've got a brand new transmitter. This does feel pretty high quality. It's got a little thumbstick here for steering with one hand. It can run off 4 AA batteries, or you can remove this, flip this little cover open, and it can run off of 2 18650s. You also have the option to run it off a LiPo battery if you want. Under this little cover are digital trims. We also have a steering dual rate and throttle EPA, the ability to control the lights and the gyro. You can adjust gyro sensitivity with this. And then we've got a couple extra channels up here. Overall, I'd say this does feel pretty high quality. It doesn't have any of that hollow, cheap feeling that we get with some other transmitters, and I think this is a nice update. This does have a USB-C port on the back here. I assume that's for charging the 18650s, but I'm not certain. All of that controls the power this motor puts down through a 48P pinion gear. This is machine steel, as is the spur gear on the center differential, and all of that's going to run off this included 3S battery. This is a 2200 milliamp hour soft pack, and Rlaarlo says it can do 35C sustained. That is a pretty reasonable claim, but let's see what the LiPo dyno has to say about it. The LiPo dyno is saying 17C, which is about what I would actually expect for a small battery like this. This may improve a little bit with use, but probably not much, though I have had good luck with these batteries on these cars, so it should be just fine. Though with this new 80 amp ESC, we might be getting into the realm where the battery is the limiting factor. Now, speaking of limiting factors, on previous versions of this platform, the center differential has been the hardest thing to access. Let's see if they've made it any easier. The removal of these carbon fiber plates should let us take that top cover off, and that definitely does let us get a better look at the center differential, but unfortunately it's still stuck in here. You might think taking the motor mount off would fix the problem, but it still won't come out, and the real solution is to take this entire rear module off. Fortunately, that isn't terribly difficult with just a handful of screws. Though I would like to see access to the center differential improved in a future model. But with that rear module off, the center differential does come right out of here. That gives us a better look at the machine steel spur gear, the updated out drives that we've gotten since the second version of the Omni Terminator, plastic differential case, and inside that sealed case are a standard set of bevel gears. And then we've got a steel center drive shaft feeding to the front differential. With the rear module off, we get a better look at the suspension components. The arms are plastic, the ABCD blocks are stamped aluminum. There are plastic pills in the aluminum for the hinge pins to go through. I think this is really great because it provides a little bit of cushion and doesn't end up stretching out the holes in the blocks. And these are cheap and easy to replace if they get messed up. The hubs are also plastic, though we've got some upgrades for those. And then the shock towers are really nice machine 7075 aluminum. On the front end, things are pretty similar. We've got adjustable toe links, kingpin style steering, a plastic steering system with an adjustable servo saver, and then another 7075 shock tower with the same shocks that are in the back. And with that, we're just about ready for a blast. While I'm putting this together, I'm gonna go ahead and charge the included battery with the included battery charger. This is a very basic 2 amp USB unit, and while it's okay, I definitely recommend getting a good name brand charger like a Gensace that has a screen on it so you can monitor what's happening with your LiPo. Fortunately, this is just a standard LiPo battery, so you can charge it with any LiPo charger, and you aren't locked down to a specific brand. Okay, everything's put back together, battery is charged and in, and after installing the wheel liners, which fit really nicely with the double-sided tape, this thing's ready for a blast. Let's go see what it can do. Before we start the speed run, let's do a quick light check. You can see we've got headlights, high and low beam. You can even flash the high beams if you want to. We do have turn signals left and right. According to the manual, you can turn those off. And then we've got tail lights and reverse lights. And now for our speed test. First pull of the throttle, it feels pretty responsive. Handles pretty well. I can already tell you I like the way it handles on this hard surface better than some other cars we've recently talked about. Let's see if we can get a full speed pass out of it. Full throttle. Yeah, she handles pretty well. Brakes are fairly sensitive though. Let's get another pass out of it. Full throttle. Oh yeah, she's moving around all right. Not too bad. Feels pretty good. Let's get one more pass. Full throttle. All right, not the fastest thing in the world. Before we bring it in, I want to let you know that this is not the speed gear. It does come with an optional speed gear, and it's usually geared pretty conservatively out of the box. With that being said, we did get 39 miles an hour, which is identical to what the Traxxas got on 2S. Again, though, we could definitely do better with the speed gear. Now, with that being said, I can say already, on this kind of surface at least, it handles a lot better. This is exactly what I would expect from a Rlaarlo rally car, and from any rally car. We've got a decent amount of body roll, but we've also got good control. It's not bouncing around all over the place. And I've even got the gyro turned off right now because I don't normally bash with a gyro on, and it feels pretty darn good. It's got a good combination of traction and grip. It lets go when you want it to, and it handles really, really well on this surface and feels really good and looks good doing it too. Moving over to our smoother asphalt surface, we do have a lot of control here. It does feel pretty good. I think it actually might have handled a little bit better on the rougher surface, though we can definitely get some good slides here. These tires feel pretty versatile on these surfaces. Obviously, you've got plenty of power for some donuts. That looks pretty cool. A little bit of a tornado there. All right, that's awesome. We made some nice marks. You can actually see the marks left by the Traction Hobby Primal RC there. Moving over to dirt, again, this feels really good. Most of this is around 1/2 to 2/3 throttle. This thing has plenty of jam with this stock gearing in it. I'm not lacking for power whatsoever, and it does feel and look really nice. Again, this is with the gyro completely turned off. I really don't normally run a gyro unless I absolutely have to. On the Traxxas, I kind of felt like I needed to. With this, I really don't. This feels really, really great. And again, it looks good doing it. This is definitely not a Subaru STI in blue. Looks really nice, and I'm definitely enjoying this. Yeah, it handles exactly as I would expect it to. Moving over to some very much not scale gravel. The Traxxas was really struggling here, and this doesn't seem to be having much trouble whatsoever. Yeah, it's bouncing around, but it's important to note that these gravel pebbles would be about 1 foot tall in full scale, and this really doesn't seem to have any trouble with it whatsoever. This reminds me a lot of the F10, and it should, because underneath it basically is the F10 with a different power system. Power and control feel good. I'm not feeling a lot of lag on the ESC or in the servo, and overall, it's gonna have no problem on this kind of terrain whatsoever. Feels really nice and looks really good doing it as well. Got some short to medium height grass here, and once again, no issues whatsoever. We've got decent ground clearance. Those tires are getting good grip. Very easy to control, handling the bumps well. No issues whatsoever. You can definitely bash this in short to medium height grass. And again, oh man, this thing is fun. It feels so good. And don't forget, no gyro here. It'd be even easier with the gyro on, and it's pretty easy with the gyro off. This thick, rocky terrain is truly awful for these smaller scale cars. It beats the crap out of them, but again, as you can see, this is really not having much trouble with it. Obviously, it's not gonna be perfect. We are way, way out of scale with the terrain here, but it is really handling it just fine. No flip overs, fairly easy to control, and yeah, it just does it. It's not super thrilled about it, but it is doing it. And by the way, in case you thought that grass was too short I was driving through before, how about we try driving through this? yeah, I can barely see the car in here, and as you can see, it just plows right through it. This is very, very tall grass. I don't know what secret sauce Rlaarlo does on their rally cars, but they managed to make them go through pretty much any terrain, especially stuff that it really, really shouldn't be able to do, and I'm having no problem with this at all. Since it doesn't seem to have much trouble with any terrain, how about we do some straight up rock crawling with it? This is way out of scale again. These rocks are big, these ruts are big, and it is rock crawling as well. Okay, we finally got high centered there. Can we get out of it though? I think we can. And yep, we even got out of it, did not need any help, and off she goes. And now we're into some really deep sugar sand. This is monster truck territory. You probably don't want to drive your rally car here. And okay, yeah, we finally met its match. It can't handle these deep ruts. But once we get out of those, into some more shallow sand and a grass combination terrain, once again, it's back at home. It's kicking up rooster tails. It's having a great time. Okay, we rolled it. That's cool. That was just a product of me being full throttle the whole time. This thing does have enough power that you need a little bit of throttle control in order to not wreck it. But yeah, with a little bit of throttle control, it looks like a hero on these surfaces, and it looks just as good, if not better in person than it does on video. Got some great rooster tails kicking, just got a face full of it, and on these kinds of terrain, this thing is absolutely awesome. I know some of you are gonna wanna know the range of this new radio, so let's go ahead and do a range test. I'm just gonna full throttle all the way across this field. I don't normally drive this far away, but hey, maybe some of you want to. Still got perfect control. Starting to have a hard time seeing it. I'm really not sure how much further you guys would wanna go. It's mostly just a dot out there now, so I think it's safe to say it goes as far as you need it to. Let's bring it in and see if it'll jump. This is the same jump we failed to do with the Mini Rally. Let's see if we have any better luck with this car. Nah, it also wants to nosedive. It did a little bit better, but still mostly on the nose. Let's try it one more time. Maybe some more speed will help. No, more speed does not help. That's not the jump for it. Well guys, so far this is exactly what I was hoping it would be. Straight out of the box, it's a lot of fun. These fender liners seem to work pretty well. This is what it looked like right after I was done bashing before I blew it off. And overall, it's handling exactly like I wanted it to. Now, before we put a bunch of upgrades on it, I think we all want to see what it can do with just the included speed pinion, so let's throw that on. This should be very easy, but there is one trick to it. Just get this front receiver box out of the way real quick, loosen the motor mount, use the handy provided slot to pull the grub screw off, and then with just a touch of persuasion, the stock pinion slides right off the front of the motor. I did have to use a little bit of heat on this grub screw, so that's something to be aware of, especially with a small grub screw like this. If it's not coming out easily, apply a little bit of heat, otherwise you might strip it out. Before we install the new pinion to make sure it doesn't fall off, there's one very important step we need to make sure we follow, and that's cleaning the threads with acetone, alcohol, or brake cleaner. There's gonna be manufacturing grease on these threads. Look at all that. And if you don't clean that grease off before applying thread locker, it's probably gonna fail on you. With that clean and a generous amount of thread locker applied, I'm gonna go ahead and install it. Tighten the grub screw, making sure I'm actually tightening down on the flat of the motor shaft. Get my mesh adjusted, and then most importantly, give this thing overnight to cure, because if you run it right after tightening it up, the thread locker will not be cured up and it'll probably fall off on you. All right, let's see what the true out-of-the-box top speed is with the optional pinion. I expect it to be a little bit more lively than it was before. Let's see what we can do. Oh yeah, that's faster. Not the fastest thing in the world though. It definitely is quicker. I still don't think it's being pushed to its limit though. Yeah, that still feels like it's going pretty easy on the electronics. Let's give her one more pass, get the best speed we can. Full throttle, and that's been good enough. Let's see what we got. Bring it on in. Still very stable. I'm still not using the gyro. Let's see what we got. All right, 44 miles an hour. That is definitely a lot better than it was before. And I think this is probably the gear most people are gonna wanna use. It feels plenty lively enough, and I still don't think we're pushing those electronics very hard. But now, it's time to do some upgrading. Historically, one of the big disadvantages of buying a car like this was a lack of available upgrades. Typically, if it wasn't a Traxxas or an Arma, aftermarket companies pretty much just ignored it. Rlaarlo fixed that problem by just creating a catalog of upgrades themselves. And for this particular platform, there's pretty much any upgrade you could possibly want, and they're pretty affordable and nice. And while I had ordered a lot of the upgrades for this, I actually ordered them from Amazon. A lot of them didn't come in time, so we do have a few things to show you though. These upgraded aluminum case differentials not only look fantastic, but they come with the S2 tool steel output. And this aluminum case is going to keep the gear in better alignment than the plastic one will. Though since we already have the carbon version, we're not actually going to get a gear upgrade with this. So if you did get the aluminum version of other vehicles, you would get an upgraded gear set as well. While these aluminum rear hubs aren't 70/75, they're definitely going to be stronger than the stock plastic ones, so I am curious to see how the bearings fit. Bearing fitment in plastic is really easy because you can just make the plastic slightly smaller and the bearing will push the plastic out of the way as you push it in. Aluminum won't do that, so the hole has to be very precise in order for the bearing to fit properly. And that one feels perfect. That one's a tiny bit loose, but not too bad. Ideally, you want a slip fit where it won't fall out, but it's not hard to push in either. However, one of the nicest and most functional upgrades you can get goes right here. That's this bracket that, when put in place of the original setup, allows you to install any 1/10 scale servo upside down that you want to. That's where this second receiver box comes into play. It gives you a place to actually put your receiver when you do that. Though because Amazon delayed a lot of the strength upgrade parts I wanted, and the fact that I realized that I must have recently killed my Cobra 10, I think we're going to shift gears a little bit and do some durability testing on the original hardware. One limitation I noticed while test fitting things is that if you want to use the full-size battery mount that allows you to mount the battery lengthwise here, you'll need to relocate your ESC to this top mount. With this particular body, the interior gets in the way of that, so you'll either have to cut out a hole here or remove the interior portion itself in order to do that. One upgrade that I do want to put on are these aluminum hexes. These hexes actually clamp on, and that just means your hexes won't be coming off with your wheels every time you take them off. They look nice too. All right, let me put the rest of these on, get this battery charged back up, and let's go take this thing off the big jump. If you remember, we were unable to complete this portion of the testing with the Traxxas because it simply could not run in this grass. I'm trying to replicate the exact same conditions, though the grass might be a little bit shorter. It is wet, and as you can see, we're really not having any problems here. It's a bit slower than it was on some other trains because this is thick grass, but we should be able to at least get it up over a ramp. And yeah, there we go, no problem, and it landed pretty good. So off that ramp, it went really well. Let's try it off a bit of a smaller ramp. No problem off that one either. It is definitely struggling a little bit. This is some really thick grass, and these are some pretty small tires, but we can at least get a few hits and test it out. So far, it does seem to be wanting to land on its wheels even when it starts off on the roof. It's getting a little bit stuck there, but it is getting through it. And let's go for another jump, full throttle, and we missed. Let's try that again. See if we can get it on the roof. Yeah, there we go. I expect this thing is going to be just fine with most medium-sized crashes. This kind of car, having a body protecting everything, means that your drivetrain really doesn't take much impact in a crash. It's mostly going to be hitting the body. You're not going to be hitting the arms or the wheels, so it usually won't break on normal bashing, but it's definitely good to try. And yeah, it really does want to land on its wheels every single time. That's nice. It means you don't have to go and grab it. Let's go for another jump here. Oh, I hit the brakes. I was trying to do a nosedive. Yeah, even in this really thick stuff, it can definitely get through it. If it was dry, it would be a lot better, but this is perfectly manageable. And as I expected, even though we're not able to do big jumps off this because this is a small car, it's handling the jumps we're getting just fine. Oh, right on the top of the body. Body seems reasonably durable. That internal roll cage is going to do us some good, though I'm not sure quite how much. Let's see if we can get one more good jump out of it. There we go. Yeah, she jumps just fine. So what do I think of the new Rlaarlo XTS-S10? Definitely not a WRX rally car. Overall, it's pretty much exactly what I expected it to be, and I really like it. Under the body, this is pretty much the same thing as the XTS-F10, just with slightly updated electronics. And that's a good thing because the F10 is probably the best rally car I've ever driven. I did lose one of these inner fender liners in a crash. I suspect that's because the body flexed more than the liner did. When it came off, it took some of the paint of the body off with it, which I'm not super thrilled about. The body itself did take a little bit of damage on one of those nasty hits, but it's not too bad. And overall, while this platform is very good, I would say it lacks just the tiniest bit of polish. While it comes very well appointed out of the box and has some awesome upgrades, including these standard body mounts that let you run any body you want, there are a few things about it, including that the center differential is pretty annoying to get to, that prevent me from giving it a perfect score. Some people also might have a problem with the definitely not a WRX rally body. I'm not going to get into the legality of that. Feel free to argue that down in the comments. Ultimately, the question is, would I buy it over the Traxxas Rally? And I would say 10 times out of 10, yes. The only two reasons I could think to buy this over the Rlaarlo are if you really like this body and you're really concerned about the warranty. Obviously, this also will come with a warranty, but I suspect the Traxxas one might be just a little bit easier to deal with. Though some people have had some pretty serious complaints about Traxxas warranty lately too, so maybe not. Overall, this thing is faster with the optional pinion that is included, far more versatile, and a lot cheaper. The list price for this thing's $399. Calculating that out from the list price of the F10, I'm guessing that's going to make it about $310 street price in the long term. And that makes this a lot cheaper than the Traxxas, especially if you factor in the battery and 3S charger you'll have to get for the Traxxas to make it go as fast. Of course, on 3S, the Traxxas is faster, but again, I don't think this thing's being pushed to its limit. It either needs to be geared up, or maybe I'm not getting full throttle out of my particular ESC. This is a pre-production sample, and I know they are working on some things related to that. So while I got 44 miles an hour, you might be able to do even better than that when you get one. Overall, just like with the F10, I'm really impressed with this thing. It's a really fun rally car. It looks nice, and it is very versatile. You know what else is versatile? This channel, which means you should probably look at one of these videos next.